Good evening. My name is David Okun. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you everybody for supporting my channel. Thank you for sharing, liking, and also watching, taking time to watch the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. The best way to support this channel is to subscribe. Subscription is free and takes seconds. You don't need to register or anything, and leave a comment below. We have been talking about the cost of living, and we have been linking this to the United Kingdom as a country. So we'll be talking about the United Kingdom. We have actually, if you watch this video, connect it to the previous videos about the United Kingdom. This is all in context of the cost of living as a crisis. And today we will be looking at the constitutional principles within the United Kingdom, and the status of the constitution is the document, is a system, is a framework for governance. So if you have a government in any part of your world, regardless where you live, you look at the constitution and understand that the constitution is the document you use to govern. It's a document of government, the government of the United Kingdom and its politics, the politics of the United Kingdom. Going through a material to illustrate what the United Kingdom look like. The constitution of the United Kingdom is uncodified and consists mostly of a collection of disparate written sources, including statutes, judgment, case law, and international treaties, together with constitutional conventions. So these are actually the infrastructures, the different elements of what makes the constitution. Is actually a basic framework which contains in its essence when we say a constitution is uncodified, we are actually saying it is not written in one document as a piece of material, and this is an intrinsic characteristic of the British Constitution. Constitution of the United Kingdom is not written into a document. You cannot, like in the rest of the countries of the world, such as the United States of America or other parts of the world, most countries have their constitutions codified. Codification means it is written as a single document, as a body of document. But this, in the case of the United Kingdom, you have constitution which is said to be unwritten, which is actually what you're looking for. The constitution of the United Kingdom, you look at documents such as there are sources of the constitution, including statute. Statute is actually the primary source of the law. The statute is actually enacted in Parliament, and we have looked at Parliament elsewhere in other in other videos, and we have said there that in the UK, Parliament is a sovereign institution, and it embodies any ruling authority such as the monarchy, the king, the kingdom of the United Kingdom, as it is. So the idea of sovereignty actually rests with Parliament. Parliament has immense power in that respect. What it means is with Parliament, such as you find in the UK, it can make pretty much any law, and in principle, you can do pretty much anything. With Brexit, and to an average or even a technical or professional person looking at the European Union, its relationship with the United Kingdom, nobody in practice would have even perceived the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. But this idea of parliamentary sovereignty always illustrated the capability of Parliament to do pretty much anything, take countries to war, and do things such as leaving the European Union. And underneath this embodiment, there are actually personalities such as the Prime Minister with executive power, meaning he aids the government, is head of the government of the United Kingdom, and the constitutional head, you could argue, is the King of England, King Charles III. But in practice, the one who holds sway over Parliament and government is actually the Prime Minister. In terms of practical government and politics, the Prime Minister of Great Britain is the most powerful man or woman in the country and also in the world, Britain being a leading power in the globe. And so, going back to looking at the essence of the British Constitution, or rather the United Kingdom Constitution, it is said that it is uncodified, and it consists mostly of a collection of disparate written sources. These written sources are found in the laws, such as statutes, like I said. There is another source of primary sources. There are different sources of the law in the UK. The primary sources are actually the statute, which is actually the main source of law in the United Kingdom. Statute acted in Parliament, but also there are primary source of law which is not legislative. It's actually case law, which is called judge-made case law, which is actually a written source of what makes up the unwritten source of the Constitution of the United Kingdom. And the international treaties are actually legal instrumentation within international legal and political obligations connected with Britain, and international legal obligations including the European Union treaties and also human rights laws and international treaties actually under perhaps the United Nations and similar. And we talk about also the constitutional conventions. The constitutional conventions are actually rules of operation within the constitutional makeup. It is different from the law. It has less potency, if you want to call it that way. It has less potency than the law of the land, but it's actually part of the constitution of the United Kingdom, which are written, and the entirety of the operating the UK and the UK's monarchy, such as King Charles and all the resources of the monarchy, the royal family, in their operation within government, is governed mostly by the conventional principles and also its applicabilities. These actually they are outlook of what form what is uncodified constitution of the United Kingdom. Nevertheless, the Supreme Court recognizes a number of principles underlying the British Constitution, such as parliamentary sovereignty, the rule of law, democracy, and upholding international law. In the face of the Constitution of Britain not being written, I say there are principles which are actually with the content and implying of immense power and influence, principle of parliamentary sovereignty, which I mentioned just now, and the rule of law. The rule of law means the law rules. Nothing moves until the law says so. If the law says you must die, you will die. If the law says you must live, you will live. And if the law says come to Britain, you will come to Britain. If you want to leave Britain, leave Britain. If you are to stay alive, you will stay alive. But we don't practice in the UK. We don't practice capital punishment, capital sentencing, and capital sentencing and punishment means you are hanged to death. I mean, death sentences are passed for very serious criminal offenses, like 5-degree murders and treason. Like if you try to overthrow the government. Of course, we are familiar with issues surrounding treason and serious crime. In the UK, we no longer practice the death penalty. We used to practice death penalty and also corporal punishment. Corporal punishment in theory still exists, but in practice it doesn't. Corporal punishment means you are flogged, you're beaten, you're caned with a stick, or I don't know what else they do, but it's a physical punishment by flogging, by beating. You're beaten with a stick, or with strokes, or whatever you want to call them. It used to happen, but it no longer happens. These are actually some of the legal principles which actually connect directly to the rule of law. The rule of law being fundamental key principle of the Constitution, which is actually recognized by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court being the organ of administering the law at the highest possible level in the land, in the United Kingdom. And we are also talking about democracy. Democracy, in its skeletal definition, is the rule of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is the easy bit to understand what democracy means. It involves elections. It involves accountability. The government have to answer to the people of the country, and the parliament has to hold the government to account, as in members of parliament, and different mechanisms to make democracy make sense in the face of the rule of law. The rule of law, in my opinion, is almost a contradiction of what amounts to democracy, because democracy actually implies fluent and almost perfect freedom contained under the auspices of democratic principles and practices. But when you look at how the rule of law operates, the law in its packaging is an instrument of force and also the instrument of consent. And there is something called enforcement of the law, which is actually fall under the rule of law. And it is so difficult in practice to actually establish that the law of the land is actually there to promote freedom, to promote democracy. It's the interweaving of these forces that sometimes blur the meaning and also the outlook of the rule of law or even democracy. And also we are actually we are actually as a requirement, and we are to uphold the international law, and these are all recognizable principles which actually underlies the British Constitution, things like international law, legal obligation. And going forward, you'll probably familiarize yourself with these principles. So the Supreme Court also recognizes that some acts of parliament are special constitutional status and are therefore part of the Constitution. And these include Magna Carta, which in 2015 required the King to call a Common Council, now called Parliament, to represent people to all courts in a fixed place, to guarantee fair trials, to guarantee free movement of people, to free the church from the state, and to guarantee rights of the common people to use the land. Constitutional law actually is quite similar to the Constitution itself, because actually it relates to the principle of rule, the rule of law, such as including the principle of laws governing things like the rule of law, democracy, things like the Magna Carta, which in 2015 required the King to call the Common Council, now called Parliament. It used to be the Common Council. Council normally means consultancy, it means advice, which means Parliament is actually an advisory body, even now. Parliament and ministers, including the Prime Minister, actually provide advisory function to the monarchy. In they report to the King, and so on and so forth. And this actually was the Magna Carta of which occurred in the Magna Carta in 2015 actually required the king to call a common council now called Parliament. So it called Parliament to represent people. So the representation of the people in instrumentations are actually very strong component of the Constitution. I've said at the outset that the Constitution is a governing document, which is probably one of the most powerful instruments ever created within the system of rule and administration. And also to all courts to a fixed place. So courts of every sort. When I talk of the courts, I think they are probably courts about the courts of law, because there are many courts. Courts actually, all courts actually can refer to Parliament. Court is a place where people actually provide audience or also congregation, like the court of ecclesiastics, the court of the church, like the church, like maybe place of worship. These are also courts. And there are also places where, like the civil service department, this actually, or anything where people congregate to do business, these are courts. So courts of Parliament, courts of law, and in a fixed place. So we talk about establishment, constituting of the established system where people actually gather to do business of the state, business of the institutions, of various institutions in society, like exactly the church or Parliament itself. So to guarantee fair trials, occur in courts of laws, and maybe in Parliament also. What you are trying to, if you are trying to adjudicate over certain matters in certain places, then you talk over the principle of fair trials. So to guarantee free movement of people. Free movement of people means traveling within and without the country. Like example, within the United Kingdom, if you begin to think that, why should people be given the right to free movement? People want to gather, maybe to go to party or to rally for political purposes, when during campaign, during party elections, political elections, people have to be given the right to associate, to move freely, because if people are restricted from movement, which in many countries today there are still restrictions to move. Even in big countries there can be curfews. The state can put an emergency rules on curfew. Means people are not allowed to move freely. We saw it during the Brexit. Government actually restricted free movement. It went contrary to the rule of free movement. And when there are emergency, Parliament, especially the Prime Minister, has the power to suspend certain rights and freedom. Freedom of movement was restricted during COVID-19. So this was actually the genesis of this granting of these rights. So granting, for example, rights of common people to use the land. And if you come to think that you would need to require common people to use the land, it would imply that under absolute authority of the monarchy, which as it used to be in the past, the monarchy having governance over rulership over the country would, as of right, would have absolute ownership of the country, owning lands, having taken all the lands from the people, control to ensure total control of the population. And some of these constitutional materials, components began to initiate a process of actually taking some power away from the monarchy, which was actually the kingdom of the United Kingdom. As it was then, it was actually, like the king had almost absolute authority over the country. But a group of people with power and influence began to form into what now is called, common council, which is parliament, like common people. All these concepts began to emerge. So now we talk about the House of Commons, which is implied. It implied to refer to the common people of the ordinary people like you and I, the member of the public, who are not really special, but in practice, these are people with wealth, people with interest in land, people who begin to apply pressure to the royal family, and the royal family beginning to acknowledge that there are people in the country who have access to wealth, who are really powerful individuals in the family, and the royal family beginning to negotiate with them, to appease them, to devolve some of the power to them, so that they begin to work as power partners, and that's what began to happen. And the civil equivalent of what could now be a military system under the monarchy, because the monarchy was the law. The monarchy was almost like a god. When the monarchy speaks, the world actually stands still. And if the monarchy decides you to stay alive, you will stay alive. If the monarchy says you die, you will die. That was how it was. But these powers began to evolve. The idea of freedom, the idea of fairness, and the idea of guaranteeing certain rights, like land ownership. But if you see the context of land ownership now, you still find that there were some people, I think they're called the gentry here in the UK, and there are only a few percentages of people, and still even today, most of the land in the UK is actually owned by the royal family. And my understanding is that Prince William, now being the Duke of Cornwall, I think owns over 400,000 acres of land. And this is actually a major issue in the UK and across the Western world, where the British people are actually dispossessed of their land. And even now on the news, if you turn on the news, wherever you look at the news, you will never hear the mentioning of land. And yet, land is the principal source of wealth. The primary reason why there are 90%, over 90% of the British people are actually poor, because they don't own land. And land are owned by maybe 2 or 3%, perhaps 5% of the population. And the biggest poverty is cultural, because British people have actually lost any value of what land provides. And if you talk to on the street, if you're a politician or you're just somebody who wants to speak to people, if you get to talk about land, people will think you're out of your mind. They might even think, try and visit, mental institution, because you're mentally deranged. We don't know anything about land. We don't know what you're talking about. We don't own land as British people. We don't actually own land. We don't even know what you're talking about. We don't want to know. What do we want land for? We want to go on holiday. We want to be in bars or public places. We want to drink. We want to have dinner. We want to be on a holiday and work. We work, raise our money, pay our bills, and go on holiday. We don't want land. And a lot of young people now even are not interested in buying property. When you talk of property in the UK, you're not talking about land, because yet actually the only valuable asset, the only valuable property in the UK is actually land. And now we are thinking of houses. We think about other property like maybe furniture, cars, aeroplane, jewelries. These are property of their form of wealth. But the main wealth in Britain, in any country, is actually land. Because from the land, everything comes. Everything comes from the land, including what you wear, what you eat, what you drink, what you used to eat your home, like fuel, water, food. The cost of living crisis occurs because people don't own land. If they did, they would be building their own houses. They would be growing their own food. They would be producing their own energy. They would be drinking their own water. Then you don't have to pay for this thing. The reason people pay for food, the reason people pay for water, for the basic necessities in this country, because they don't have land. They pay for housing, they rent housing, they buy housing. They are not supposed to do that. They're supposed to get money from wherever they get. They grow their own food, sell it to those who don't have food, or exchange it with those who. If I grow carrot, I can exchange it with somebody, with a neighbor who has grown skumawiki or spinach or spring onions or potatoes or whatever. You know, if I want chicken, I can go and exchange my chicken with somebody who is rearing duck or turkey. And without money, without the system of exchange, without the business system, that is how people would live. The only advantage we have now is technology, which people can access by the help of the public sector, by the help of the government actually availing this through the local authorities. To every household should have access to infrastructure and to technology to build housing, and the government should pay for that so that people build their houses. The government should allocate land to every British citizen and also foreigners who live in Britain should own at least 1 acre of land, or at least a quarter acre of land. That is enough to build a house. It's also enough to grow your own food. And with technology, that is very easy. And we can form communities of farmers. You grow what you want. You don't have you just close all the supermarkets. We don't need it. We don't need supermarket. It's actually all the pollution now is because we are importing food from different parts of the world. We have technology in the UK. We can divide land to every member of every family. They grow their own food. They build their own houses. You know, they eat their own homes, and they provide for their own drinking water. The state do not have to provide anything for anybody if people had land. And because the state took away the land of the British people by force, when we say, people are actually demanding in 2015, people certain individuals with power began to demand own land, for example, right to own land. It's not a small thing, it's really fundamental. And today, the cost of living is there because the British people don't own land. If they did, in theory, they would not suffer the cost of living crisis because you don't buy anything. And you're not supposed to pay taxes to the state. Why should you pay taxes to the state? Because that is a form of slavery. Taxation is a form of slavery. And that is why, even if we continue to pay tax, the state, in its living attitude, still do not want to provide welfare. This is our money. It is our country. It is our land. Whether you live in Britain, whether you live in America, the country belongs to you. But it only belongs to you if you own land, to grow your own food, to provide for your own things. The government, if it insists on ruling over other people, it should provide. Actually, if it's going to tax the country, it's going to tax to do research in technology, into medicine, into maybe formal education and things like that. And the rest of the matter should be left to individuals if they want to get rich, if they want money for some reason, because the government should provide these things for free. People pay taxes. Everybody works and pay taxes to the state, to the people who represent us in the state. And these people, some with the tax money, they use it for their livelihood. They buy their own houses, they buy their own cars, they buy their own security, they buy their own whatever. If you are the King of England, if you are the royal family, tax money you use it to provide for your family and for their protection to actually provide for the military, because there is a lot of violence in the world. We are culturally uneducated, and the reason for war is actually failure to be culturally educated. And it costs us a lot of money in providing security, of any sort, including food security, energy security. Anything in the world now is security. Personal security. Home security, your home, the way you build your house, the way you design your house, the doors. You have to use technology more and more for your home to be secure because of violence. And violence on the streets, violence on the doorsteps in your home. People break into people's house. Sometimes they set houses on fire. So security concerns are going to be on the increase, because violence is going to be on the increase. Cyber security. Now, these days, I'm actually afraid to answer my phone call. If the number comes and I don't know who is phoning me, sometimes I don't answer, because it could be a virus. It could be people are sending, security weapons to hack on my history. So, it's becoming harder and harder, cyber security and all types of security, physical security, military security, national security, food security, energy security, health security, employment security, the security of tenant in terms of housing, homeland security, home economic security, food. We don't know what we eat in terms of its food safety, technological security, engineering security, scientific security. Everything has to be protected because of trust, the gap in trust, or total lack of trust. And this is actually because of cultural failure. So we need to bring peace and security and also prosperity to actually improve on our progress. We need the cultural economy as part of the component of developmental economy. I've actually discussed this concept in the other videos. The concept, I don't know who else talks about this concept, and I think it is my idea. If I'm going to have some bragging rights on it, because the idea of cultural economy, I think I'm the only one who talks about it. Probably most people do not know, but I'll try to explain what it is. It is actually valuing humanity first. Cultural economy means the human activity surrounding, understanding the value of humanity, and also setting up systems, education system in families, communities, and also state level system of training and learning about the prioritizing humanity over any other factors. But because now, if you study society at close range, humanity comes last. When we see the policeman on the street, we think they are coming to help people. They are not coming to help people. They are coming to actually protect things, road infrastructure, school building. I live near the school here. You see the police standing around. You think they are looking after children. They are not necessarily looking after children. Their priority number one. Well, in principle, if you go to a police officer or to any government minister, like Shuala Braverman, if you go and ask her why are the police patrolling schools during school hours, school run hours, why are they're going there to protect children, school kids? Yes, that is the principle, but in practice that is not the case. They are actually here to protect infrastructure, like school buildings, like traffic, road traffic infrastructure. And if you are traveling on the motorway, the number one priority of security agencies is to protect the motorway against people. So people are now the enemy, seen as the number one enemy. Actually, some people protect their dogs, their pets from human beings. And that is a perversion of society. Because everywhere you go, human beings, any human being should be protected against cats, dogs, foxes, hyenas, wolves, snakes. Now, if you watch a program such as David Attenborough program, you see that his program is actually protecting wildlife, like wild animals, trees, water, soil, land from humans. It's like we value things more than human beings. Today we are in a position where we can begin to kill people to protect animals, because for fear that humans are going to destroy the world if we don't kill them. But who are we? We are also humans, killing other humans to protect things, to protect dogs, to protect cats, and more, the attitudes actually hostility. When we go to war in Ukraine, the people we kill are actually human beings. We are not fighting in Ukraine to kill dogs, to kill cats, to kill lions, to kill wild animals, or even to fight viruses. We were fighting COVID-19, but during the process of dealing with COVID-19, we fought human beings more than fighting the virus. The system is defaulted to destroy humanity. This is a crisis, and it will relate directly to the cost of living crisis, because we as a society have diminished the value of humanity. If we had known, the government would act overnight to eradicate the cost of living crisis within a day in a country like Britain. Within a day, by changing benefit system. In the UK, we have something called the universal credit. The universal credit should be scrapped immediately because it's so complex. If you want to provide benefit to anyone, you don't give benefit to anyone if it is so complicated you can't even access it. Accessing universal credit today is almost impossible. If you access universal credit, it's almost impossible to maintain it. So sustainability, accessibility of benefit, sickness benefit, because of health check in the UK, sick people are actually, you can die in the process of trying to get personal independence payment, limited capability for work related benefit, which is actually part of the universal credit. You can literally die to fill the form. The forms are so long. The forms are so complicated. If you don't know how to use a computer, you cannot actually claim universal credit. And that is actually a complete nonsense. Because a lot of elderly people, although elderly people who are pensioners don't get universal credit, they are supposed to get something called pension credit, the guarantee component of pension credit. If they didn't work enough to earn the full state benefit, state pension, including housing benefit. So, first, I'm talking about the benefit system in the UK, which is actually the primary source of income for those who are retired, for those who are sick, for children, for those with disability, those who have lost their jobs, those on low income, minimum wage. Most people on minimum wage are actually on universal credit, on benefits in the UK. And that is wrong. Because if you work for a living, even if you work only 3 days a week, you should earn enough to pay your bills to eradicate the cost of living. The UK government can eradicate the cost of living tomorrow by changing the way they pay people who work, increase their salary, tax the rich, or talk to them nicely, talk to the super rich, multimillionaires and multimillionaires nicely, to give money freely to the state, to pay, the money should be ring-fenced to increase pay, supporting small and medium businesses to provide adequate, decent pay for people who work for living. And in terms of government offices, such as public sector, civil service, local authorities, and all the other charities, the government should directly facilitate, ring-fence funding for organizations, big organizations which give support for different people within the public sector, including charities, including statutory bodies, These should be provided with adequate funding to provide decent pay. If you work for a living, if you work full time, you should get a minimum of £50,000 per annum. And that is enough to eradicate the cost of living crisis. It's enough for you to rent your home. You don't need any benefit. And in terms of the benefit, if the government is keen, if the government fails to provide full employment within the economy, because my argument has been that employment is actually part of, actually, if you work for a living, you are actually supported by the welfare system of employment. So the government should actually directly intervene to support small and medium businesses to provide employment. If it cannot provide employment, then it should provide benefit. Benefit, you only need to tell the DWP, the Department of Work and Pension. And in my opinion, the benefit department should be divided, separated from the job center. The job center should be there to help people to look for work only. And the department for welfare benefits should be created within every government, within every developed country, within the developing country, like such as in Africa. All this should be created, especially now in the face of increasing technology. Technology which is now replacing human labor, which in the future is going to provide full employment for the industry without human employment, including in the military, the police, prison, the NHS, the National Health Services across the globe. The doctors are going to be replaced by the machine. The performing the media companies will be all replaced by robots. And we have seen with artificial intelligence within the entertainment industry in America, where writers went on strike. They went on strike because they were not being paid. They're losing their business because film producers are now going to artificial intelligence. And going forward, that is going to be the case. The nature of entertainment is going to be non-human. Everything is going to be human. Are going to be jobless. Even leadership, the government will shut down. Right now in America, in the United States of America, we are anticipating a shutdown of government departments. That is the beginning. The reason these things are happening is because the government is actually set to shut down. The selling of the economy is the beginning of shutting down the government, because I believe technology will be running the state, and there will be no need for the government. There may be a type of government which actually is there to rule over people, and such a government is going to be different, because whoever controls technology, people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, the multimillionaires and the billionaires, these are going to be the new rulers, private rulers. They're going to go from private businesses to private government. This will be total dictatorship if we don't tidy up our cultural economy today. With technology, with the closing down of public sector, with the public sector and the public government, we're going to privatize even the government. The new rulers of the globe are the Elon Musk of their age. Bill Gates, Donald Trump and his family do not need to be in the government, or you don't need election. There will be no election anyway, because they will have absolute power. They will have absolute power, and they will rule over you. And there's going to be absolute dictatorship, because you see, we're going to go back to where we came from. When the king held sway over the state, of the nation. In those days, we're talking about changes happening from 2015 recently as 2015 in the UK with the Magna Carta. When people began to demand human rights back from the monarchy. The monarchy were a terror to the nation. They had absolute authority. If a monarchy speaks, the earth quakes. The earth literally melts under its voice. They had so much power, and they still do. And in the future, people like King Charles will re-emerge in the form of Elon Musk. People like, I'm not sure about Elon Musk per se, maybe their children or grandchildren, maybe their ancestors. I mean, their what am I saying? Their children, you know, their children, their descendants. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their descendants. Their descendants may become the next kings of the world, because they will have absolute authority. They are going to have so much wealth. They will control technology, and when they speak, technology moves to rule over humans. And if we don't tidy up our culture today, we don't actually succeed at the cultural front. It's in, having respect for people, having respect for humans. Because if you value somebody or something, you need to protect it. Right now, we are valuing money and wealth more than anything else, so we protect wealth. Every security system, cyber security, is about things, about information, it's about systems. It's less and less about people. If you get to think, even food security, if our priorities were to look after people, we wouldn't have the cost of living as a crisis at all. The cost of living is occurring because of poverty. It's evident. If you want to know you are poor, then know that you are suffering from the cost of living. It's a crisis. If you are not suffering from the cost of living, you have a big smile on your face and go to the bank and withdraw as much money as possible and go and spend it. You are not poor. You are rich. You are a rich person. You are a multimillionaire. You are a multi-billionaire. You don't suffer the cost of living. You are one of the lucky few. And if you have to work for a living, if you cannot buy your house free of charge, if you have to really work and borrow money to buy a mortgage, we know it as mortgage. People understand mortgage very quickly. Mortgage is a form of credit. You are borrowing money to buy a house. You are a poor person. That is how to know you are poor. If the government wants to eradicate poverty, if it knows how to eradicate poverty, then it would actually get money from the rich to build houses, to provide healthcare, to provide hospitals, the health system, which people actually are supposed to access free at the point of need. That is what the government said. But now we see that we can't even access services in the hospitals. We cannot access services at all. But the government said to us, we are going to access free health care at the point of need. We agreed to that. See, we elected our government. And then the government refused to help. Because when you contact the health service of the UK, you are going to wait for an hour or even 2 hours. And when an administrator answers the phone call, they will say to you there is no appointment left. If you ask them to make an appointment, they will tell you they cannot give you an appointment because their policy is that they don't pre-book an appointment. What that means is that you don't have appointment. Hospitals do not give appointments to anyone who is supposed to get access to healthcare free of charge. So that means that the National Health Service of the United Kingdom is the preserve of the few and not the many. If you want to access healthcare, become a billionaire. If you work for a living, because the government said if you work for a living, if you are living in the UK, you are actually supposed to access health care at the point of need. Free health care at the point of need. This is what politicians say. But what the hospitals are doing now is amounting to these promises were false. They were false because either the government was lying to us, and also the hospital actually continuing to lie to us to say there is free healthcare in the UK, and there is not. Because if there is free anything, whether it is free or not, if there is anything at all, you should be able to access it. And if you are to access something, something should be accessible in the first place for you to access it. But if you access it, you should be able to maintain it, to sustain it. There is the question of accessibility. There is also the question of sustainability. This is a feature you find throughout the public sector, throughout the public service in the United Kingdom. It doesn't matter where you go in terms of healthcare, in terms of housing, public housing, in terms of employment, in terms of transport, public transport, in terms of schools, education, public education, in terms of food and energy, in terms of water, you name it. So the cost of living is a sign of the times, and it is the announcing of the end of the public sector. It is also the announcing of the end of livelihood for people who work for a living, because sooner rather than later, employment is going to stop when technology starts. It's now happening. Computer has taken most of the work now. If you look for work now, there is no work, because especially admin work, you hardly can find admin work because computer is now doing the admin work. I give advice. I do my own admin work. So if I try to look for admin work now, I won't find it because the computer is doing it. It's now only less than 1% of employment in the economy is admin work. So we used to have retail sector, which is the main source of employment in the UK for at least young people who leave school, and the rest actually banking, insurance, and all these other hospitality sector. Now it is gone. It is going. If you go to the supermarket where you say, the mother and the father of all retail sector, the supermarket, you now find the cashiering. When you go to the checkout where the cashiers used to work, you find now machine. Customers are the new cashiers. Customers are now the new retailers, because there is self-service on the shelf. If you go on the shelf, you no longer ask a member of staff to give you any product. You take it yourself. You check out yourself. And a lot of the job is now going to infrastructure, storage, building storage, and also logistics, such as transport for delivery vans, and delivery people, drivers. But with driverless vehicles also, there are going to be no drivers. With robotics, there are not going to be human delivery worker. This will be replaced by robots. These will be replaced by driverless cars. Driverless cars are now becoming robotics in themselves. So they will bring your goods and services, and let's say goods in this case, from the supermarket onto your doorstep, and you will go and pick your things from the robot, which is a vehicle which is driving itself. Maybe it will be talking to you. Maybe you have to, do a bit of identification before you take your product. And that's the future, and that is retail, which is employ most people in Britain. So the government should have this information, knowing that, anticipating that employment is not going to go up, but it's going to go down. So realistically, the government should now start thinking how it is going to provide income for the British people. Because if it doesn't, if it concentrates on closing down the public sector, then the British people are going to be left in the cold, literally, because they will have no work at all. there will be full unemployment. We used to talk of full employment, which was a myth, because capitalism doesn't provide full employment. Only the public sector provides full employment, but there are limits to what the public sector can do realistically. Therefore, with the advent of technology, the public sector should be now reinstated to manage wealth directly, so that people, instead of ordinary individuals who are not responsible for anyone, owning wealth, and you don't know what they're going to use the wealth for. They are probably going to use the wealth to kill people, to destroy. I mean, if somebody with a lot of hatred for human beings now control the entire technology of the world, and we're talking 10 years, 100 years, 200, 500 years, or even 1,000 years from now. Because what is to happen in the future is beginning to happen now with incidences such as the cost of living crisis. Let us go back. We digress a bit, but it's so important for me to illustrate this point. This includes the Magna Carta, which in 2015 we talk about constitutional principle, and the Supreme Court and all that recognizing all these constitutional principles of the United Kingdom. So we talk about the Magna Carta, which is actually a body of law, which is actually constitution in its legal fingerprinting, and so it required the king to call a common council or even parliament to represent people to all courts in take place. So instituting these legal and constitutional spaces, establishing them into actually recognizable spaces, and institutions being translated into places of work and places of operation, to guarantee fair trials such as in court, to guarantee free movement of people, like people traveling within the country and outside the country, international and domestic travels. And movement actually is more than traveling, because if you go to a party, if you go to a club, if you go to work, that is movement. You don't have the right. The government can wake up in a bad mood and say nobody is going to move out. Especially so with COVID-19, people didn't go to work. That is restricting movement of the people, and people didn't go to visit their friends, families. So movement is extremely a vital point of human existence. People used to hunt and gather freely. They used to move from one place to another. I mean, if you're tired of living in one area, you can move to another one. There were a lot of spaces, and we can now use technology to free people more, to move more freely. But we can only do that when we actually begin to look after our culture. Because like I said, we may be rich, we may be powerful, but if we use our wealth and power against human beings, it's going to be more dangerous than when we are living in poverty. Because some powerful people are going to destroy humanity very quickly. So we need the cultural component to really bring peace. If not, we are going to go extinct. If we fail to develop culturally, in other words, we will fail to start understanding the value of humanity and actually instituting this in our systems of laws, constitution, of society, of the economy. We need to integrate humanity within the systems such that humanity are valued first more than any other thing. Then we begin to use our wealth and power for the people. That is my idea of democracy and freedom. We use everything we have, every good thing we use for people, and we don't use people to get things. We use things to protect people. We don't actually enslave humans. We use things to protect humans. And most of Magna Carta is no longer in force. Those principles is established that still exist are mostly protected by other enactments. So the Magna Carta, if you begin to look for it, most of the things in it is no longer there. they are integrated between other bodies of laws. After the wars, the Three Kingdoms and the Glorious Revolution, the Bill of Rights, 1989, and the Claim of Rights Act of 1689 cemented Parliament's position as the supreme lawmaking body, and I say that the election of members of Parliament ought to be free. If it is free, it means without prejudice or any restriction. So after the wars of the Three Kingdoms and the Glorious Revolution, the Bill of Rights or 1689 and the Claim of Rights Act 1689 cemented Parliament's position as the supreme lawmaking body and say that the election of members of Parliament ought to be free. In accordance with principle of parliamentary sovereignty, the United Kingdom can carry out constitutional reform through acts of Parliament, and thus has the political power to change or abolish almost any written or unwritten element of the Constitution. That's I already mentioned that previously. No sitting Parliament can pass laws that future parliaments cannot change. So Parliament cannot bind. One Parliament cannot bind another Parliament. That principle. These are key constitutional principles. And thank you for watching this video. We are going to stop this here. Subscribe to this channel, leave a comment below, share the video with family and friends, continue supporting this channel, watch the videos, and leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and click like. Subscribing is free, it takes seconds, you don't need to register. Thank you and God bless you. Thank you. Bye bye.